Hello everyone and welcome to another mass session, and I am delighted today to be joined by Ashanti Bentil-Dhue, who is an events entrepreneur and a co-founder of a new movement called Black in Events. Now, diversity is something that the events industry is now beginning to take seriously, and it's great that we have got a grassroots movement to bring the issue onto the agenda. But before we go delving into that, Ashanti, I'm hoping maybe you can give everyone a quick introduction as to who you are and your experience in the events industry.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Martin, for having me. Really happy to add value. So my background is that I owned a event space for quite some time in South London, and also I have a virtual event production company. So we've been in online events for about 5 or 6 years in total. And so that's what we do for the main part. And then also recently co-founded Black in Events with global colleagues around the world.
Yeah, that's kind of what really caught my attention, really. Can you give us an overview about Black in Events, where the idea kind of started and what it is you sort of hope to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the work I do is around, just from an interest point of view, is research and data around diversity in general. And of course, we've just gone through the COVID period, then we went through Mental Health Awareness Week. And so there are definitely some challenges specifically experienced by, BAME, the BAME group, as it's called in the UK, and specifically Black employees. And so there was a conversation that had been happening behind closed doors within kind of networks of colour in the events industry about what we could do to improve racial diversity in the industry. And I met my co-founder, Kanisha, on Twitter, as you do. And we got talking and we said, look, this is something we've got to do. So we started doing all of the work in January of this year.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. And I think, you and I were talking the other day before we lined this interview up, and, you made a really good point then, which was it's time for kind of conscious action. It doesn't mean, that we all have to feel bad. We can be positive about this. And the events industry is just largely white. That's the way it's sort of been. So how do you think we as an industry can empower more Black and Asian people to not just join it, but to grow?
Yes. So this is a great question. And one of the things I always love to start by saying is that the events industry is probably the most poised industry to do this in the UK, right? Some other industries are really going to struggle. But when you think about some of the key principles of the events industry, community, collaboration, teamwork, and the fact that events span every other sector, there's not many other industries that span every sector like the events industry does. So it's in a real position to lead the way when it comes to conscious inclusion of Black and Asian kind of event professionals. So that's the first thing I always like to start with. And in terms of helping people stay and then grow, so of course there's many different avenues, but one of them is about recruitment and talent development. Diversifying where you are actually advertising your roles that are available. That is really key. Working with grassroots organizations, working with networks and really niche communities like Black in Events, where you can access the kinds of people that you're trying to actually attract to the roles. Further to that is also having diverse marketing. The reality is that if you look on job adverts, if you look on websites and in brochures and you don't see anyone who looks like you, it's possible that you can make the decision that A, it's maybe not the right environment for you, but B, you wouldn't be welcome. And so these are these subtle messages that come through for if you are Black or Asian, especially younger generation, and you're looking at going into a particular industry or working with a particular company. If you don't see yourself at all, that can be a bit of a stumbling block straight out of the gate, really. So I think marketing in the recruitment process and also where you're actually recruiting to attract more diverse talent is really important. And then the other really important piece there that you mentioned about the growth, so retaining and growing this workforce, it is about creating inclusive work environments. Okay, so there's work that has to be done internally within organizations to make sure that these environments are inclusive before you can really invite different people in.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I suppose it does come down to this question of workplace culture. A company has to want to adapt and to be inclusive, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's not easy. I think until recently, of recent events and all of us being online, there are clearly some teams and some directors, some managers who had blind spots. They weren't able to really identify whether or not their work environment was inclusive and whether that was a conscious culture that they were nurturing and cultivating. And I think it has been a little bit of a shock for some people to realize that some things some attitudes, some behaviors, some actions that we take are not necessarily as inclusive as we think they are.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Could you maybe share with us some tips for enhanced kind of talent acquisition?
Mm, mm. So on that side of things, it is really about, so for example, there are plenty of networks and small groups that are based on Instagram or in Facebook groups. So people often forget about those places, okay? And they have very connected communities full of, especially, if you're looking for millennial Generation Z employees, they are using those platforms to inform their decisions about the places that they work. And they're also really relying on word of mouth recommendations. That's why it's really important and useful if you tap into those networks when it comes to talent acquisition. Using the kind of standard mainstream recruitment agencies or job boards online will not necessarily attract that diverse talent, that young talent, who, by the way, are using social media, they're using word of mouth, and they're parts of small knit communities where they share job roles and opportunities amongst themselves. So, go out there and look and find. Instagram is probably easier because you can use hashtag keyword searching. Facebook, you can literally just type into the search bar, okay, and you will find these groups start coming up. And be open and transparent. That's one of the pieces of advice I've been giving a lot. You don't need to go in there with a kind of long spiel or business case. You can just be diverse, transparent, and say, look, we are looking for more diverse applicants. That's why we're reaching out to you. What can we do to connect with your community? And most community founders, builders will be open if you are looking to add value.
That sounds pretty positive to me. Let's just quickly return to this kind of notion of conscious action. Now, a lot of people might be nervous to raise the issue of colour, meaning that perhaps they're going to be less likely to take any physical positive action. I mean, what message can we convey to reassure them it's okay to ask questions to perhaps make them feel comfortable so that we can move forward as, as an industry and I guess, society at large as well, really?
Absolutely. So this is the key here. What we're trying to avoid, which is what we've seen, is inaction. Okay, so there is a large, population of people who are in the middle who have just been inactive and passive. And whilst you can understand from their point of view, that may have been the best course of action in the past, but now we need to be actively moving towards kind of anti-racist work environments, conscious inclusion. So my advice for that is, first of all, you can't skip doing the work in terms of the knowledge and understanding of the current situation. So it's really important to engage and invest in qualified partners that can help you understand and discover where in your recruitment process, where in your current workplace culture, you have blind spots. So that's the first thing. And you can do this privately. This does not require you to post on social media. It doesn't require you to release any public statements. In fact, I advise against that, especially if you haven't got your internal house in order. It's absolutely okay to take a step back and seriously review what the situation is when it comes to your diversity internally. It's okay to do that. So that's the first thing. Do the work, engage professionals, experts in this space who can help you to work through what you currently have, if you have an initiative or policy at all, to see where you can tighten that up. That's the first thing. The second really big thing is, if you do have Black and brown people in your organization, talk to them. Talk to them. I can't tell you the amount of emails and messages I've received from employees who've said that their employers have said nothing. Okay, so if you're trying to if you're trying to build trust, if you want to move forward, you're going to have to approach your employees about this, if you have any. Okay, open up the conversation. Understand that they may be worried for the first time being asked to talk about their real experiences, because that's the thing. You know, many of us have just navigated these environments in silence. And maybe we'll have a chat about it at home with friends or with your mum or whatever. So this is the first time a lot of people are being asked in the work environment. So you have to assure them that there aren't going to be any repercussions or disadvantages later down the line if they choose to be open and transparent with you. So those, I think, would be the two main things, because it's such a complex area. Engage professionals, get external help. And secondly, talk to your current Black and brown employees.
That sounds, you know, food for thought, really. I mean, that's such a simple thing to do, isn't it? So I guess really my last question really is, you know, Black in Events is a new network, and I know we were talking the other day, and I'm not sure if you've got a finalised date, but you are planning on running some sort of launch event. Is there any information you can give to our audience about where they can find out more about that and joining the network?
Yep, absolutely. So we are on Twitter. So find us at Black and Events, all one word, on Twitter. And we will be launching very, very soon with a speaker directory. So if you're looking for Black and brown speakers, we will have a global directory. If you are looking for a job board that will help you to access and reach more diverse talent, we'll also have that. And in addition, we'll be launching with a Black-owned supplier list. So for those of you who are looking for ways to diversify your supply chain, we will have those directories very shortly within the next couple of weeks. So come and find us on Twitter, and we will release details shortly.
That's great stuff. Look, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm hoping the audience are going to get involved as well. I know we are getting it on the agenda. Ashanti, carry on the good work, and look forward to seeing you soon.